What's happening, everybody? You're watching The Casual Fan with me, Wyatt Dryer, and we got a quick clip for you today on something that's been driving me crazy. My own Bills Mafia, my own Buffalo Bills. This notion that we are failing to succeed or Brandon Beane is failing as a general manager because of the wide receiver position. This is something that I listen to the radio often. I hear callers calling in, I hear the radio host talking about it. And it's, Brandon Beane hasn't gotten us a wide receiver. He's not getting Josh Allen weapons. We, haven't picked up a big money receiver. You often hear about the Miami Dolphins, Cincinnati Bengals, Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, they're the top of the league because they have two premium wide receivers: T. Higgins, Chase, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, etc. Everybody knows, the Dolphins with the Lamborghini and the Ferrari. I get it. It's sexy, it's fun. Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. But I just want to kind of look at where the Bills have been since Beane has been there, what he's done to address the position, and kind of have a little bit of a conversation about it because I think it's been something that the fan base has sort of ran wild with, whether it's we're listening to the radio too much or we're seeing some of the talking heads on TV. I think the Bills have done fine at receiver, specifically with Gabe Davis. I think that that's somebody who has been better than we give him credit for. And, I'm going to tell you why as we kind of go through this. So let's just jump back to 2018, Brandon Beane's first year with the Buffalo Bills general manager. That's his first draft that he had, which we all know he traded up for Josh Allen, Trey Edmonds in the first round. But let's look at the wide receiver position over the past few years since he's been here, because I do think that he has attempted to address it. What I think a lot of people leave kind of out of it is, were we in position to get some of these guys that, people talk about, the Jalen Waddles of the world, the Devontae Smiths. Where were they drafted? Were we in position to draft them? Looking at some of the free agent wide receivers year after year, were those reasonable wide receivers for us to go after? Could we afford it? It's fun to play fantasy football, meaning, we should go get everybody and we should pay everybody. I've seen a lot of Bills fan now talking about trading up for Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, listen, that would be awesome, but realistically, I don't know how possible that is when you think about, the cost to trade up in the draft. And that's something to keep in mind as we do go through this. We're going to talk about where the Bills drafted, versus where some of those premier receivers were taken, because if you know about the draft and trades and things of that nature, it's very, very expensive to trade up in the first round. Ask the Carolina Panthers how they're feeling right now, what they did for Bryce Young. 49ers are a team that everybody thinks John Lynch is the best GM and Kyle Shanahan's a great coach, and they're a Super Bowl favorite right now. It wasn't long ago that they made a monster trade to move up and get Trey Lance. They mortgaged a lot to do that. So, I want to keep that in mind as we sort of go through this and see what options we had. Did we make the right moves? And then I want you to hit me down in the comments below. Am I off base? Did I forget about somebody? Or where should we have made that move? I'm all about realistic. So again, it's nice to say, oh, let's draft Jamar Chase, or let's draft, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, some of these guys that have gone over the past few years, but I don't know that the Bills could have realistically done that. So just looking back to 2018, this was a year that the top receivers in the draft were DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Cortland Sutton, Christian Kirk. Those were perceived to be the top rated draft picks on the board as far as wide receivers concerned. DJ Moore went 24th. Now, remember, 2018, this is a year that we did trade up and get Josh Allen, Trey Edmonds, and then we didn't pick again until the 97th pick. And obviously some of these premier receivers are gone at that point. So what did the Bills do? We drafted Ray McCloud in the 6th round. Obviously, that didn't pan out for the Buffalo Bills. So I do understand in the 2018 year, but that was kind of the start of our rebuild in a sense. Rebuild, we just had come out of the playoffs, but everybody knew Tyrod wasn't the long-term answer. We take the rookie quarterback. We're sort of resetting, if you will, in 2018. So when you look at free agent wide receivers available in that year, it was Jarvis Landry, Allen Robinson, Sammy Watkins, and Kelvin Benjamin, who was just leaving the Bills. And I think Bills fans had had enough of that project. So think about that. Kelvin Benjamin was the 4th highest rated free agent wide receiver. Sammy Watkins We all know we drafted him. The Bills drafted him, high draft pick, third overall, I believe it was, fourth, excuse me. And that ship had sailed. Also, Sammy could never get healthy on the field. That was, I think, his biggest issue was just his health, which never allowed him to be, as good as he might have potentially been. And the quarterback, we didn't have quarterbacks settled in his first couple years. So I think 2018, it's fair to just say that's when, we're kind of looking at this Beane's first draft. We get Josh Allen. We're sort of rebuilding the offense, McDermott set year, etc. So 2019, the top. This is the year that I think can receive the most criticism. This is the year that I do think that there was a couple guys we could have gotten, and obviously this is all in hindsight, right? It's easy to look back and say, well, we should have did this, or we should have did this, or oh my goodness, this fourth round draft pick turned out to be a Pro Bowler. Amon Ra, I'm looking at you, brother. But if you look at 2019, Hollywood Brown and N'Keal Harry for the Patriots were the only two first round wide receivers taken that year. Now Hollywood Brown, the jury's still out. He's in Arizona. Kyler Murray's just coming back, but certainly hasn't been, what you'd perceive as the top overall draft pick that year as far as wide receivers. And N'Keal Harry, he never even got his feet off the ground in New England. I believe he's off the team, and I don't know that he's on another roster right now. The second round is where, you could debate that the Bills had some opportunities to take some guys. And I know Bills fans, you're gonna lose your mind here. We did have the 9th overall pick. We took Ed Oliver, which I firmly believe was a strong pick, and Ed Oliver has really began to show his value for the Bills. I love what he's doing. He's starting to become a game wrecker, and we re-signed him on a deal that I think is extremely team friendly. So I can't mock that pick, nor would I have wanted Hollywood Brown or N'Keal Harry instead of Ed Oliver if we were to trade back or anything of that nature. Now, where some of the heat starts to turn up is the Ole Miss receivers, A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf. I think one of the worst picks that Brandon Beane has made thus far is the Cody Ford pick, and that was 38th overall this year. And A.J. Brown was taken 51st, D.K. Metcalf 64th. So both of those guys were on the board. Again, I get it. I get the Cody Ford pick. He was touted coming out of college. You got Josh Allen, your first round pick. You got to protect your quarterback, right? And we don't want another Andrew Luck situation where he's, league leading in sacks and he's retiring early in his career because, he's getting, multiple sacks a game. He's running for his life. And are we really going to see the best version of Josh Allen if he doesn't have protection up front? So from a logistics standpoint, I understand. But this is certainly the one time that I can look at that wide receiver position and say, hey, we probably could have done, maybe we had a shot to do something here. So, the A.J. Brown, D.K. Metcalf, I get it. Would love to have either one of those guys on our team. Obviously, another thing we'll get to later is the price tag these guys come at after their rookie deal. But again, that year also free agents, Antonio Brown at 31 years old, Golden Tate at 31 years old, and Robbie Anderson were the top three free agents that year. And I want to say, if I remember, we went after Antonio Brown at 31, and there was stories coming out that we were getting them, and then there was, it fell through obviously at the end of the day. He goes and plays with Tom Brady. I think personally we dodged a bullet on that one. If you're a Bills fan with Antonio Brown, we all know how that played out. So 2020 is the year where, again, for people saying Brandon Beane has never done anything to address the wide receiver position, 2020 is where I'm going to kind of turn the attention to. This is the year that we traded our first round pick for Stephon Diggs, which I don't know that there's a football fan on the planet that could say that trade didn't work out hugely for the Bills. Obviously, the Minnesota Vikings benefited on the other end of it as they used that first round pick to take Justin Jefferson. Sure, it's easy to look at it now and say, wow, having Jefferson at the age he's at versus where Steph is, but all in all, that has been a slam dunk for the Buffalo Bills. Steph Diggs, one of the best receivers in the game. Josh Allen to Steph Diggs has been an elite combo, and I don't think anybody's upset with that. So, we got to look at that as Brandon Beane doing something to address that wide receiver position. Now, in the same year, the prospects coming out that year, this was a really strong first round draft class as far as wide receiver. But now, again, a couple years later, did we really miss out? Yes, we did on a few, but we also did it on some others. Again, keeping in mind that we assume that Steph Diggs was our first round pick in this group. But you had Henry Ruggs taken 12th overall. think most people know the story with Henry Ruggs. He's been out of the league, due to some outside of the NFL incidences. Yeah, Jerry Jeudy 15th. He's a hyped receiver. He's been okay, but he's not made any Pro Bowls. He's not making huge impacts on the games. We'll see with Sean Payton. He seemed to have steadied out a little bit. But I obviously I'm happy Steph Diggs is on the team rather than those two guys. Then you do have CeeDee Lamb, 17th overall. CeeDee Lamb has really turned it up this year. It was said he, what can't be one of the best receivers in the league. CeeDee Lamb's, a beast. I can't take that away from him. Him and Dak have a great thing going. Then 21st overall, Jalen Reagor, really another guy that highly touted, highly scouted, hasn't made a major impact on the league. So I don't think we missed there. Jay Jetta at 22, that was the Bills pick. And then Brandon Ayuk was 25th, another really strong receiver that you see in San Fran. But again, we have to keep in mind we didn't have that pick. T. Higgins 33, Michael Pittman 34. This was a great draft for wide receivers. Again, keeping in mind that the Bills did that with Steph Diggs. That was our first round pick, was essentially Stephon Diggs. Now, moving forward in the 4th round, this is where the Bills take Gabe Davis. And this is where, my frustration with the fan base sort of cooks up a little bit, because I personally believe Gabe Davis is a strong wide receiver too. And we'll get to a little bit of why as we go on here. But 4th round, we take Gabe Davis. 6th round, Isaiah Hodgins, who is still playing for the Giants, a Brian Dable guy. So we ended up taking 3 receivers in 2020. So you certainly can't say that we didn't try, and that's just the draft. Now, free agents, if you're looking over at free agents, Amari Cooper was the top free agent that year, signed big money contract. AJ Green was aging. So, obviously that's not an ideal pickup. And then Emmanuel Sanders was the 3rd rated free agent wide receiver, and the Bills signed him. So in 2020, we trade a 1st round pick for Stephon Diggs. We use our 4th round pick on Gabe Davis. We use our 6th round pick on Isaiah Hodgins. And then we sign Emmanuel Sanders to come in, who's a wily veteran, made a good impact on the teams. So you cannot say that we didn't address it in 2020. Moving forward to 21, as this has started to cook, top 3 picks in 2021. The Bills are going into the draft with the 30th overall pick. We're having good seasons. We're making the playoffs. Jamar Chase goes 5th, which is, there's one of those teams everybody talks about. They drafted T. Higgins the year prior. Now they take Chase 5th overall. And then Jalen Waddle goes 6th. And now you have the Miami connection with Tyreek and Waddle. And then Devontae Smith, who at the time, A.J. Brown, isn't with the Eagles, but he soon will be. So you're seeing, this is all top 10 picks. This is not teams, picking guys out of the bucket in the 3rd round. These are bona fide college stars that are coming into the league. Now, what I led in with, the Bills picking at 30th to realistically trade up from 30 to get a guy like Jamar Chase or Waddle or Devontae Smith. The cost is enormous. Now, I don't know exactly what it would cost, but I know it costs multiple 1st round picks, often 2nd, 3rds. You're swapping picks, and your team feels that investment from an asset standpoint for years to come. So I can't criticize us for doing that. And we also picked up Greg Rousseau, 30th overall, who I think looks like a very strong prospect, one of the better young edge rushers, defensive ends in the league. So I can't criticize what Beane was doing in that scenario. Now, again, as far as what we could have done, this is one of those bolded ones on my list. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was taken in the 4th round this year, 112th overall. Now, hindsight's always 2020. There was 111 other picks that passed before Detroit decided to take Amon-Ra St. Brown. So can I really criticize Brandon Beane and 30 other GMs in the league that didn't take Amon-Ra? So sure, that would be nice. We'd look back on it now. We'd feel great about it. But, the stars didn't align on that particular pick. Top free agents in 2021, Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster. Again, no guys that I really want to break the bank for. Everybody knows if you're the top-rated wide receiver going into the offseason, you're going to have multiple teams chasing after that guy, thinking that that's the piece that they need. The money is going to go, up and up and up to acquire those guys. And I just personally don't think that those guys were worth an investment on the Bills' behalf at the time. 2022, another year. There's a lot of receivers gone in the first round. The Bills are picking 23rd, and all the talk around the draft in 22 was that the Bills needed a corner, and obviously Trent McDuffie was the one we were looking for. He goes early. Kyer Elam's the pick. That's a whole nother day that we can discuss whether that was, beneficial, reaching, should have went somewhere else, etc. But in that first round, Drake London 8th, Garrett Wilson 10th, Chris Olave 11th, Jameson Williams 12th, and Jahan Dotson 16th. Out of that group, Garrett Wilson is the most hyped, I would say, at this point, but due to the quarterback problems, he hasn't really blossomed to his full potential. Chris Olave is another talented receiver. The Derek Carr, Saints quarterback situation has been rough over the past couple years, so we haven't really seen him be able to hit his true potential. Jameson Williams is still developing. Jahan Dotson, Washington's definitely been a hit and miss team. So, all things considered, we weren't able to trade up and pluck any of these guys. But none of these guys outside of Wilson, maybe Olave, have shown superstar potential yet. Same for Drake London, the highest picked receiver. He's still sort of finding his footing in Atlanta. Quarterback, again, is always going to be a caveat to the wide receiver position. So I don't think we've seen all of that. But again, not expecting Brandon Beane to trade up to get one of these guys. So we ended up taking Khalil Shakir in the 5th round. If you look back through this draft, it's arguable that Khalil Shakir is one of the steals in the wide receiver class. We're just starting to see him come to light, which is fantastic if you're a Bills fan. So you got to feel good about Brandon Beane's scouting on this one, as he's starting to make a solid impact on the team. Now, moving over to free agency in 2022, Davante Adams was the top free agent that year. But again, being realistic, the cost to get him was in the plus 20 million category. And Davante wanted to go to Vegas to play with Derek Carr. They were college buddies, college teammates. So he had already sort of made up his mind where he wanted to go. Chris Godwin, coming off the ACL surgery, and Mike Williams for the Chargers is another one that ended up going back to the Chargers, but also he's had a long history of injuries. So really not much in that free agent top tier pool that the Bills realistically could have won after. Now, here we are in 2023, the most recent draft offseason to taking us where we are now. And the Bills were picking 26th, I believe it was, to start. We traded up to 25. What happened in the first round was you get to pick 20, and you ended up having the 4 top receivers taken off the board. I mean, it's certainly something you could assume that the Bills were looking at a receiver in this past draft. But without trading up, 21, 22, 23, 24, those top receivers go consecutively. A lot of them are showing promise with Jackson Smith and Jigba in Seattle. Quentin Johnson, that would be the one that people would say, maybe not yet, especially ask those Charger fans how they're feeling right now about their first round pick. Zay Flowers shows a lot of promise in Baltimore, and Jordan Addison has been fantastic for the Vikings. So definitely a crop of receivers we could have selected, but it didn't line up, and we end up getting Dalton Kincaid. I don't think there's anyone right now that could argue that that's a bad pick, considering he's shown a lot of potential. He's on pace to break rookie receiving records, and tight end has become a very impactful position from a receiver standpoint in the NFL. So I think being slam dunked the Kincaid pick, it could be obvious. I might be stating the obvious, but again, to think that we should have traded up, maybe I'll listen to it. I can't. We ended up trading up a spot to get Kincaid, so perhaps we should have traded up to get one of these receivers. But are you benefiting that much more or less than getting Kincaid? I think that's up for debate. So let me know what you think. Should we have went up and gotten a Jackson Smith and Jigba? Should we have gotten a Zay Flowers? If we end up with Quentin Johnson, would it have been a mistake because the jury's still out? And then again, looking at free agents that year, this past season, Jacoby Myers, DJ Chark, and Robert Woods. Right? I don't think that that's anything that any Bills fans are saying we're winning the Super Bowl because we made that pick or we made that free agent signing. So I think overall, if you look at since Brandon Beane has been here, we've tried to use our opportunities. 2020 was the big year going after Steph Diggs, taking Gabe. We're not playing fantasy football when it comes to real roster moves. So I don't think that it's been realistic. I think Beane has done what he can. He's chosen when it's right to choose. I can't be mad at him for missing on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think the most valid criticism could be the year we took Cody Ford and A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf were on the board. But again, that hindsight, it's always 2020. It's easy to say that now, as these two guys are stars in the league, AJ Brown and DK Metcalf. Some other things you got to take into consideration too is just the price tag that comes with this double wide receiver set. The top tier wide receivers in the NFL are 20+ million dollar a year guys, and to think you could sustain two of those contracts, and guess what, you still need a quarterback to throw the ball to these receivers. So if you look at Cincinnati, I think this will be the last year that T Higgins is with Cincinnati. They just paid Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase hasn't gotten a new contract either, which I think everybody knows that's going to be highest paid receiver in the league when that comes out. So you can't afford it. So they did use that high pick on T Higgins, and T Higgins is likely to walk this year for a very valuable contract to another team as a free agent. You're looking at Miami. They traded a lot of assets to bring in Tyreek Hill, made him one of the highest paid receivers in the league. So are they going to have room to sign Jalen Waddle? Miami's a team that's over the cap. They have not signed Tua. Tua's still playing on a rookie deal. Everybody knows that those rookie deals on a QB allow you to spend elsewhere on the roster. But Tua's payday is coming if Miami intends to pay him, which I think is obvious that they will. So it's very possible that Jalen Waddle could also be somewhere else in this league. Now, even the Eagles, and I bring up these three teams because these seem to be the three benchmark teams of, oh, look what you can do with two wide receivers. The Eagles went out, traded for A.J. Brown, gave him a new contract. They just gave Jalen Hurts his mega deal. Now, Devontae Smith will be up for contract at the end of this season or the next. And again, it's unlikely that the Eagles could afford to pay him unless he takes some sort of hometown discount. Which obviously we'll just have to wait and see. So sustainability of two high paid wide receivers is not feasible. If you look at the Bills, if they were to add another 20+ million dollar guy, so you'd have Josh at 40+ million, Steph Diggs at 20 million, and another receiver at 20 million, you're starting to look at 30 to 40% of your cap is going to be spent on three players. And that's just not, I don't think that's a good way to do business when you have to look at, you want to have a strong entire roster. The best teams are well balanced. Cornerbacks aren't cheap, DNs aren't cheap, linemen, tackles aren't cheap. So you have to be smart about where you're spending that money. So something to keep in mind as you're a fan and you're looking at this. And, of course, it's sexy to say, well, this offseason we should go get T. Higgins. Yeah, that would be awesome. But can we afford them? The Bills are already $40 million over the cap and have plenty of other things to address. So that brings me forward to Gabe Davis. I personally think Gabe Davis has received way too much criticism / not enough appreciation for what he's done for the Bills as a fourth-round draft pick. He's in touchdowns alone, he's 15th in the league since he entered in total touchdowns. Now, if you think about that, there's 32 wide receiver ones in the league, and Gabe Davis is 15th overall as far as touchdown receptions since he came in. So that's 32 receivers. And then if you factor in wide receiver twos, you're looking at a set of 64 receivers that some are cycling in and out. But Gabe Davis, top 15, that's very strong. He's top 5 in yards per catch since he entered the league. And on a couple of seasons, he was number 2. So he's a big play threat. Which the Bills have been lacking a little bit, especially this past season. He is somebody that can get down the field and make the big play. And if we could utilize that a little bit more, that's something that opens up underneath for the Dalton Kincaid and Steph Diggs to do work down there. So, he's been good at that. He's a low drama player, especially in that wide receiver position. You get a lot of guys that get frustrated if they don't get the ball. You see him kind of getting upset on the sidelines, etc. I've never seen that from Gabe Davis. I appreciate his sort of mentality. He's widely considered one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. A few games ago, he wasn't even targeted once. Joe Brady's first game as offensive coordinator for the Bills, Gabe Davis received 0 targets. And you see no sort of negative energy from Gabe. He's here to do what he can to help the team win, and I really, really appreciate that about Gabe. Now, Gabe is potentially going to be a free agent after this season. I personally think that the Bills should attempt to re-sign him on, some sort of team-friendly deal if they can. I don't know if it's even possible, but I do know that he has a great relationship with Josh Allen. He's one of his closest friends on the team and somebody he confides in. So maybe that gives us a little bit of advantage. He's still young enough that he could sign a friendly deal now and still be up for a really strong deal in another 3 years, in the 26, 27, 28 age range. So I do think it's possible, and I do think that this is something that the Bills should explore. And I think Bills fans, we got to be a little more reasonable about what we expect and what's possible. I think Beane's done a good job at trying to address the position. We don't address it when there's no draft picks or free agents available at the time. You have to sort of stay the course, and I think we've done a good job with that. Gabe Davis, I think you're underappreciated, and I think the Bills have not even game planned to kind of keep Gabe Davis more involved. So that's something that'd be interesting to see if he became a bigger part of the game plan. What could he do? So let me know down below what you think. Am I crazy? Am I defending Beane? I personally think he's done a great job, with the reasonable misses as expected. You're not going to hit on everything. It's just not possible. Hope you enjoyed the content. See you soon. Take care. Go Bills.